السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. لكم حسن ورجعت لكم في مقطع جديد ولعبة جديدة نوعا ما اللي هي قصة ستانلي، أو مو قصة ستانلي اللي هو يعني هاي اللعبة عبارة عن موظف المفترض في شركة معينة، انزين، وراح تنحكى لنا قصته، بس راح نتحكم احنا بالقصة على راحتنا المفترض، يعني بما معناه بهي الطريقة. فخلينا نبدأ في اللعبة على طول. لا تنسون اللايك والشير والسبسكرايب ان شاء الله عجبكم المقطع، ويلا خلينا نبدأ على طول. اوكي تمام، بدينا اللعبة. اوكي.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
تمام.
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day, every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
هو مقتنع بوظيفته، هو مقتنع بحياته حاليا.
And then one day something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget.
يا ساتر.
He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him
instructions,
call a meeting, or even say hi.
ما في أحد.
Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong.
في شيء غلط.
Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
خلينا نطلع برا نشوف وين الموظفين.
All of his co-workers were gone.
ما في أحد.
What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed
غرفة الاجتماعات. خلينا نروح لغرفة الاجتماعات. طيب. بسرعة. حلو. ما نقدر نطل البيبان الآن.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
فعندك انت خيار اصلا، انت تروح يمين او انك تمشي ويا القصة وتروح يسار. فانا بروح يمين بالعناد كذي، بس بالعناد.
Get some help. Way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly
كيفي.
well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
انزين. هي قائمة اللي هو هنا مفترض غرفة الموظفين.
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
لا ما نشرب شيء نمشي.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
نروح يسار ولا نروح سيدة؟ لا إني بروح سيدة.
Stop it.
أيوة.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
طبعا احنا مفترض نروح إلى الجهات اللي هو يبيها، بس احنا قاعدين نروح. زين. خلينا نواصل نشوف وين يودينا إلى الطريق.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
من يقصد؟ من
This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
ما في طريق غير له، نقدر نرجع. بس كذي أنا بالعناد أعاند فيه.
بكرة تندم يا جميل.
دقيقة. ما في الا هي الباب، فمضطرين احنا نروح للباب. ايوه اوكي باب ظلام. يهو بسم الله.
That's her, Stanley.
Man.
You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her.
Man.
If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
اوكي ما ابغى اشيلها، لازم اشيلها. طيب خلنا نشيلها. من دي؟ ايوه رجعنا للغرفة نفسها مالتنا.
Oh, Stanley, is that you?
4 to
Hold
7
on,
8.
sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right.
ما اقدر اتحرك.
Okay,
اوكي.
there we go. All right, now I want you
لا.
to come in and tell me all about
وات؟ بسم الله.
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife?
يا
You wanna commit their life to
لعنتك.
you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
اوكي.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
وات؟ جود مورنينج. اوكي بريس اف on your keyboard.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow.
بعده
He has
انا
a
مو اللي
job
يقول
that
لي.
demands nothing of him.
Oh, Stanley.
Every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
اوكي.
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what
يا
he's told
الله
to
والله
do.
صادني.
Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work.
يا
One
الله.
might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
والله اني انا متنرفز منه هذا. ما بضغط. ما بضغط. ما اقدر نسوي شيء غير له. يا الله والله انحشرنا يا شباب، لازم نضغط شكله. يهو يهو. اوكي لازم نضغط.
But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
اوكي نطالع التلفزيون خلنا نشوفه.
And so he began to fantasize about
وراح
his own
التلفزيون.
job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth.
اوكي اختفوا
The
الموظفين.
thought excited him terribly.
اوكي انا مجبور اضغط الازرار حاليا.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either.
يا الله.
Once, twice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his
يقصد الباب اللي
decisions
رحت
would
أنا.
mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
What?
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
زين.
It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
اوكي. طيب والحل
But
الحين؟
there is no answer.
ايوه وصار.
How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
Okay.
And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this.
What?
Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Okay.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
يا الله.
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must.
احنا قاعد يحاول يقنعنا.
Well, maybe this time he'll see.
أو يقنع ستانلي.
Maybe this time. And I tried again.
What?
And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. And Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
What? وش صار؟ ياهو. وش صار؟ كاتبين لي. وش صار؟ أيوه. رجعنا من البداية يا شباب. أوكي.
All of his co-workers were gone.
اوكي. فالمفترض راح نروح اللي هو الباب اليسار الحين. اوكي رد نرجع الى غرفة الاجتماعات او انه مفترض نروح لغرفة الاجتماعات. خير راح نروح الباب الثاني يطلع قصة غير. اوكي نروح الباب اليساري. اوكي. ايوه هي غرفة الاجتماعات وصلناها.
Yet there was not a
ما في ولا أي أحد.
either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
اوكي نروح إلى مكتب المدير ونشوف ايش السالفة، ليش ما في موظفين، ايش السالفة؟
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
خلنا نروح تحت، ايش في تحت؟
Stop it.
ايوه نقدر نمشي نروح البيت.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all. None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Simply repeating. No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. He came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. I suppose I'll wake up soon. Go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Okay.
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking?
صحيح.
Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me.
يا حبيبي وش هذا؟
He thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove that he was in control. that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently and he invited himself to wake up. He felt
والصار
the
بعد
weight of the
الحين.
blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside.
أنا أقدر
this
أتحرك
one.
أنا؟ والصار.
Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal.
أوكي.
I am normal. Everything will be fine.
يا حبيبي خلاص، من أنت أصلا؟
Okay.
أيوة صار، رجعوا نفس المكان أنا حاليا اللي كنت فيه.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I?
Yeah?
And everything went black.
يهو. وش صار؟ يلا رد برجعون الحين، لا تقول لي رد برجعون هنا.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Okay.
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk.
لا تقول لي هذا هو
Although
ستانلي.
she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
اوكي. خلتنا ومشت. لا تقول رد رجعون الحين. يا الله.
All of his
اوكي.
co-workers were gone.
اوكي طيب الحين اتوقع راح نمشي على كلامه، لان كل
Stanley
مرة
decided to go
نروح
to the
الى
meeting
مكان
room.
ثاني
Perhaps he had
يرجعونا،
simply missed a memo.
بس يعني يعطونك احداث معينة، ولكن ما عليه. مرة ثانية بروح سيدة هناك، سيدة ما في. خلينا نروح لمكتب البوس.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
اوكي وصلنا. اوه انه مكتب كبير يا
Stepping into his
حبيبي.
manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any
ما في
human
اي
life.
انسان في الحياة هنا.
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
فتح طريق جديد يا شباب. بسم الله. وش ده المكان؟ وش حقيقة ستانلي بالأصح؟ أنا بعرف وش ده ستانلي أصلا. اوكي. بنزلنا تحت ده. واش بعد بيودونا من ثانية يرجعونا؟
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
اوكي وصلنا. وش ده المكان لتحت المكتب؟
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
اوكي. يا حبيبي وش ذا المكان؟ ايوه.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed
اوه
with
المكان
television
كبير.
screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
خلنا نشوف. الله يستر. نبي نعرف عن حقيقة ستانلي وحقيقة حياته هذه. اوكي. اوه في كاميرات هنا.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place.
شوف في ناس فاير مطرودين. يا حبيبي يا حبيبي. لحظة وين غرفتي أنا؟ هذه اوكي خلنا نشوف. انزين نمشي زيادة. ايوه.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe it
طال كاميرات يقعد.
Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time?
أما
Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job?
في أحد كان يتحكم به؟ هاي آخرة حياته يعني؟ اوكي خلنا نشوف. يا حبيبي وش ذا المكان؟
He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
اوكي وش صار؟ صار ظلام مرة واحدة. بل ما يبين شيء.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
مايند كنترول تحكم بالعقل. حبيبي خلينا نشوف وش السالفة. هل كانوا طول السنين يتحكمون به؟ اوكي صار لها اوف. اوكي وش صار؟ خلينا نشوف هل حياة ستانلي بالأصح أو وش حياة ستانلي أصلا؟ وش السالفة؟
And a rising chill of uncertainty.
اوكي.
Was it over?
ايوه. اوه وش هالصوت؟
He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments
هل كانوا
away.
يتحكمون به؟
And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone?
يب وين راحوا؟
How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be.
يا سلام يا المنظر.
That was all.
يعني هل كان أحد يتحكم به وحين صار حر؟
It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
Okay. Oh.
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen.
أيوة.
And Stanley was happy.
اوكي. هل خلاص او في شيء زيادة؟ اتوقع انه خلاص. يب خلاص. الظاهر اللعبة لها كذا نهاية، في اشياء زيادة نقدر نسويها. طبعا النهاية اللي سوينا، طبعا انا رحت كذا مكان ودائما النهاية تكون انه يا انه يستجن او يطلع مجنون ويموت، زين، او انه يغمى عليه وينعاد من جديد. واخر واحده اللي رحناها اتوقع انها هي نهايه سعيده بسبه انه تحرر من الشخص اللي كان يقيده، يقول له سوي شذي وسوي شذي وسوي شذي. طبعا للامانه اللعبه جميله وفيها كذا نهايه، في زياده نهايات اتوقع ان ما سويناها. وبس والله يعني وصلنا لنهايه الحلقه. اتمنى يعجبكم المقطع. لا تنسون لايك وشير وسبسكرايب، واكتبوا لي في الكومنتات اذا تبون حلقه زياده من هي اللعبه. وبس والله اشوفكم على خير في المقاطع الجايه. مع السلامه.